I am from a rural town in central Newfoundland called Summerford. It's on New World Island, which is in the Bay of Exploits. Um, I had a lot of freedom as a child to play with the environment around me and find my place in that world. And when I started coming to terms with my own gender diversity at the age of 11, art was really a way for me to make sense of who I was and how I belong or didn't belong in that landscape. And starting my undergrad studies and then moving into grad studies, I've had a focus on, bringing the lives and histories of trans people, specifically trans women and sex workers from Newfoundland, into light for the first time. And and yeah, it's a fascinating but also painful process, and that's why art becomes so important to offer new histories, new knowledges, and new voices. Notions and questions of displacement are key to my thinking about place and the environment as a whole. In my research, in my art practice, I specifically expand on this idea called feeling fishy to make sense first of displacement, and secondly, the slippery positions of trans people, trans women from Newfoundland history into the present. And I do this in connection with the ocean around us, the oceanic geography, and other types of fishy worlds. I use found objects and sounds in my work to privilege the beauty and pain of the everyday that I see around me. In my latest work, I've used found plastics from a particular beach that I spent a lot of time at when I was a kid. And so I've revisited a lot of my own memories of coming to terms with my gender on that beach first, and now 10 years later to revisit a very polluted beach and what it means to negotiate all those feelings for myself at a really a painful time in my life. And on this beach, I just started collecting litter and plastic and the remnants of fishy bodies and bones and discarded screwdrivers and a doll leg. One piece in particular is called Imperma, and so I work with sea shrubs, with beach glass, and with some of these fishy remnants. The image itself is quite distorted, and it's also quite magical. And so for me, that spoke to my childhood, right? Of trying to make sense of my life within a particular place, of believing in magic, of believing in a different world, a world that I could enter into. In my work, questions of the historical and the archival take the most precedence. In Newfoundland and Labrador history, there is an immense erasure of trans and sex working lives. And so I've been called to change that and to make a difference for future generations. And so creating an archive of knowledge and of art and of scholarship is very, very important because it changes the representations of our lives that, are mediated in the world around us. My work is fundamentally shaped by loss and trauma, and so I understand trans histories in Newfoundland through this lens of loss. Thinking through loss allows me to position trans lives and knowledges within a broader history of Newfoundland culture, which is also shaped by loss of Indigenous lives and worlds, of white settler fishermen at sea, and of fish and other environmental bodies in general. And so in my research and my art practice, combining the transness of my everyday life and the fishiness of my place within this geography makes the most sense to me.